Hello, everybody. I want to do this live. I've tagged Angie Wilson. She's an American, sends me lots of links all the time. I enjoy looking at so much in the United States. Often on social media, we don't get access to a lot of those things in Canada. So it's really nice to see that. My throat's a little bit better. It's getting better, at least one side. So I'm on the mend. It's good. Had a great sleep. But I want to do this because we have the Canadian employment numbers in. Government of Canada saying, oh look, we've rounded a corner. We went up 0.1% employment. And Canadians are cheering, hey, this system's working. We're elbows up, everything's great. Where does the employment numbers come from? That's what I always do. I look month by month, and it's always after. So we're in July. We've got the numbers to Statistics Canada for all of Canada, broken down into the provinces, and 16 core industries. Where were these major employment numbers? Where did they come from? Well, entirely all retail and service sector, which means government jobs. Very, very little. In fact, only a third came from primary sector generators. And if you think resources in Canada were a major feat, you'd be mistaken. Of those 83,000 claimed jobs total Canada-wide, only 4,000 came from the resource sector in primary. When you add up all industries, construction, manufacturing, these things generate transmission, infrastructure, which is all great. When you add that up, it's only 1/3 of the employment numbers, meaning Canada's going down the toilet. What was the major increases? Well, Canadians, 30,000 of those jobs, all of Canada, can be chased back to Alberta, leading per capita higher than anybody. In fact, a 1.2% increase in employment. And yes, these are full-time jobs, half part-time. You see the massive retail sector that's all being subsidized. Federally, summer program by the Government of Canada. And what did Daniel Smith, Premier of Alberta, focus on and spend money on? Well, we all saw last month Alberta brags and boasts. The news reports, CBC, all of them. Alberta has a massive surplus. Oh, look. Okay, let's go look. Last year, Alberta, in the fall statement, announced a borrowing of that very surplus. So there was no surplus because the government of Alberta entirely borrowed against the Alberta people, meaning saying, hey, we took out a visa debt, and now we're servicing that visa debt with the money we took out. More than that, we took that money and we invested it in government employment, social services, in fact. It's the highest. For every 3 government workers, you've got 1 primary sector worker, a ratio of 3 to 1. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out when you borrow a debt that you have to pay back and you're using your surplus to pay the debt, which is not a surplus because you borrowed the money, right? We all know people who've done this. They go out, they get a credit card, let's say a $5,000 credit card that they have no ability to pay. They borrow all 5,000 of it, max out the credit card, $5,000, and then in turn every month pay on the credit card from that 5,000. So they got the 5,000, but every month they're servicing the debt. They're not paying off. They're making interest-only payments on it, and they got the money, but the money's whittling away month after month. And then now some of the money they used, the Alberta government purchased service sector employment. These are community support workers. These are social services, unemployment workers. These are all kinds of Alberta-based service sector employment. The largest gains out of the whole country. And just so Albertans, you should be aware, especially those who say they're separatist, those who say they're 51st state for the region, they talk about Alberta getting there. It's never going to happen. If you look at Donald J. Trump and what America's doing right now at the federal level, that's always been done, everybody, at the state level. You can't find any states that match the socialism caliber of any of the provinces or territories. They blow USA's 50 states out of the water, meaning you can take California and New York, the most democratically liberal states with government employment at the state level, and Alberta blows them out of the water. But actually now, Alberta blows every province in Canada out of the water. You can't even find a more government-focused, ballooning government in anywhere in North America, really. It's Alberta, the most government-focused, employment-rich province and region in all of North America, meaning never mind the 50 states. Alberta's blown away all the other provinces. Nobody comes close. And what happens in Canada that is not matched in the United States, there is no equalization program. It's called equality of the states. Federal government doesn't administer sharing bases and taking in taxes from all sources and then shipping them out to who they deem needful. In Canada, they do this. It's extreme socialism. What happens is every time Alberta raises its social services level to meet Mark Carney's needs and wants, which is exactly what Danielle Smith's doing, she's working entirely with Mark Carney, has been since the fall of last year. Absolutely. And year over year, you can look at employment. It's terrifying. And it's all based on massive federal debts, massive provincial debts. These crown entities, provincially and federally, with the territories, are playing a tit-for-tat game against all Canadians. And what happens when Alberta ramps up their social services, government support money, and starts spending money, all the other provinces have to be equalized. So that's sucked out of any primary gains Alberta has. So the little gains they got, the money they borrow, is now going to be divided out onto the provinces to match those services. Danielle Smith knows this. Albertans should all know this. Ralph Klein taught you all this many decades ago. He was the only premier to say, "over my dead body," and he wouldn't support that initiative. Of course, they threw him out on his ass. They got rid of him because nobody in Canada's crown, provincially or territorial or federally, wants any kind of physical government. Anything that kind of remotely looks like the United States has no place in the Canadian crown system. And we're watching it. This is unsustainable. The federal government's borrowing levels are astronomical. Alberta's borrowing levels are astronomical. Alberta would have had a balanced budget without any borrowing last fall. There was no need, none whatsoever, for Alberta to borrow those billions of dollars. Billions of dollars they now claim today is a surplus. It's a credit card you took out and you're claiming that as surplus, but now you have interest payments because you certainly didn't use your surplus to pay it off. In fact, you ramped up employment in service sector largely. These are tremendous gains in Canada, and it allows the federal government to expand all of their health, social service programs in equalization. The provinces will administer it, but the federal government will take from working Canadians to disperse that and subsidize this growing government nationally. And it's being led by the province of Alberta, knowing full well the scope and system that's known as equalization and health transfers. Danielle Smith did all of that in the face of knowing what it's going to do and what it's going to cost. That is not somebody who's looking for any kind of sovereignty or a way out of Canada. That's getting you in deeper. putting Albertans deeper into debt, deeper under control of the crown. So I don't know where everybody gets their ideas. Angie Wilson shared a video with me, and it's a Caucasian woman, and I believe it's an American staged video. It's super viral. It's a beautiful watch. I guess I could ask Angie to share that. I could message her after, and then I'll post that. But it's an American woman, a Caucasian woman. She goes, me and my husband haven't worked since COVID. Trump's a bad guy. He's cutting down our money. Now we can't go to eat on Fridays. Neither of us have worked. We've chosen to stay home. We have 5 kids over the last 5 years. We have a kid every 9 to 12 months. We have a child born, and we get a lot of money for that, and we don't have to work. We're low income. We get free health services as long as I stay pregnant, as long as I have children under the age of 14. But now Trump's changing all that, and this video goes on to say, what are we going to do? Now we have to go to work. How are we going to deal with life? None of us have skills. We haven't done any of that because we chose to be at-home parents who want to raise children but not work. Now, as funny as this video is, and it's a highlight of, yes, abuses of the American system, this is an absolute staple of Canada. It's been a reality for many, many decades. This is not a Justin Trudeau thing, even though he expands these programs. He did. Mark Carney's expanding them. Daniel Smith is expanding them larger than any other province in Canada at an unbelievable, unprecedented rate. Supersized socialism. And there's more than this. We have an old age security in Canada. This is a welfare pension system that is not based on your work or years of service or how many deductions you made employed like it is in USA. They have old age security, but that's like our CPP. It's only one thing. You go to work at a job, your employer and you pay into it, and it's a tremendously higher rate than that of Canada's CPP. We now have a 2-tier CPP. We make fun, or at least we allow our politicians and our own stupidity to make fun of the USA, but you'll find on the average Canadian CPP is $808 a year CAD, lower value than USD anyway by quite a bit. Think about that, Americans. Somebody who worked their whole life in Canada, worked, and the most on average you're going to see is $808. Now, an American on average, and I just went through this a couple weeks ago, and this was in line with the Big Beautiful Bill, but you can go look up the statistics. The average American on their old age security is that they contribute to is making $2,100 USD. At least 2,000. I shouldn't say that. It's a little over 2,000, close to 2,100, but it's not 2,100, but it's very close. It's under, and I think it was $25 under that on average. So that's them working their whole lives. That's someone at minimum wage. When you start averaging minimum wage versus a high-skilled working person in Canada, you realize the minimum wage American has more old age security vested at the end of their time than a Canadian who worked in a skilled industry full-time. They have more than their CPP by quite a bit. Now, how does Canada deal with that? How do they reconcile that? Well, they have an old age security too. We have OAS, they call it. And that isn't based on your work. It's a welfare check that, hey, okay, you don't have any other retirement, or you stopped working for all these years, or you were on disability, yada, yada, yada. Don't worry. After 65, we're going to put you on this as a top-up. And it's almost the same as what your CPP average is. It's another $800 and some dollars a year. Again, not based on how many years of employment. In fact, the only requirements for it is you make the age of retirement and that your income's at a lower level and you've been at least only a permanent resident of Canada for 10 years. So let's think about that. somebody gets permanent residency who doesn't live here, doesn't work here, lives in another country, but when they hit that milestone age, they've still got their permanent resident status in Canada, they just move back. And some of them don't even have to do that. They come back, register, because they have another passport inside the Commonwealth, so to speak. And then they fly out on that passport, not using their Canadian passport they got. And then they were running on the other one because they have multi-citizenship. And guess what? They're living there, collecting their old age security here in Canada. Completely sucking the system dry. When you look at all of the programs we offer, especially what Alberta's offering, people who have children, that video of that American woman that Americans laugh and say, yeah, we caught you, we know, you'll find that that's a mass amount of the immigrant population that's overabundance in Canada, and that's what they're doing, having 4 or 5 children and never working a day in their life, and they will sit like that for the next 40 years, and Canadians will pay, and not only pay for all those children and pay their monthly income, they will also get old age security as soon as they've matured 10 years in Canada. Do you see this cycle of abuse, this style of epic crazy, radical socialism that doesn't work? Again, and Alberta's leading the charge on this at a rate of 3 to 1. Agriculture across Canada, down the toilets, as it always is. We're not producing more farms or farmers, more farming employment. We're getting less and less and less as big corporate farms are taking over in Canada. Foreign farms are taking over. We've only got 9% of this country released to us. There hasn't been any major expansions of any land for farming, which there could easily be. If there's trees, you can plant crops. We went through this in Alberta. I can tell you, those Romanians, Ukrainians, Polacks, folks like myself, Scandinavians in our family histories, when we came on those settlements, large portions of it were trees. I know my father and mother alone, their first farm, Peace River, Alberta, thousands of trees. My dad had to clear all of that. You know what? They were able to plant and grow all kinds of crops, potatoes, you name it. They said, oh, that black dirt will never work. But we know all those of the first into Canada on the first releases of Crown land, they absolutely did all that. They did all that. Yes, there's the plains. You can see those portions of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. You can look at the GTA and the green belt and the massive water off the lakes and how hardy that is for crops. That's all great and wonderful. But there's a mass amount of land with trees. If you clear trees, if you can grow trees there, you can grow crops. Anyone saying you can't is delusional. It's just not right or accurate. Folks, that's my video. Hard, real, credible truths that you can choose to ignore and deny. And we can continue on this. Mark Carney can do epic scale federal level borrowing because of the epic scale provincial borrowing and provincial government growth that allows for the federal supports in our Constitution, allows them to run away with the money, borrowing against all of you, deflating you, making you worth less, paying more and more for properties that aren't worth anything remotely close to what they're doing, but they keep stacking people on, they keep overvaluating everything and telling you, don't worry, you'll learn to live with less, you'll rent multi-family single unit dwellings, and they will get taller and taller, and you will get poorer and poorer. And if you haven't seen Coffin City, Hong Kong, you should really watch that, because that's where they want us to go. That's your provincial and federal crown politicians. They're all fine and dandy. Tomorrow, if Danielle Smith got the beatdown of her life from Albertans and they had enough, she's going to be fine. She's already got, last time I checked, from 650,000 net worth to 6.5 million. She's got property in Florida. She's fine. She can live out all her days. You will find every single Canadian politician, federally and provincially, is well taken care of. If it's not in the European Union or UK or USA, it's some other beautiful resort location where they've got millions of dollars put away in the banks. over there change their CAD into other currencies. They've got all that taken care of. These people are well taken care of. They can do whatever they want. You and your children are left holding the bag for all of their evil and corrupt decisions they make today. Anyone telling you that a ratio of government to primary sector 3-to-1 is some kind of huge win, only bumping our employment rate up 0.1% just so it looks good on paper, so the Canadians think they're doing well, it's an illusion. It's a false economy. Donald J. Trump in the United States, and everyone just giving it to him around the world. But I can tell you, real job losses, real primary sector job losses, not this government growth bloat. If you took that away, we would be in the whole 0.4% employment in real primary sector. That means 68,000 jobs disappeared last month from Canada and are now in the United States of America. Real primary sector generators. And USA's unemployment rate, everybody, is just over 4%. It went up a little tick. But look how many government workers USA got rid of while growing their primary sector GDP. This is real GDP. This is real tax dollars, right from the core, created, not manufactured through debt loading or money printing. USA isn't doing that. Canada's inflation is at a low rate right now. Sure, they're purporting, hey, inflation's really low. Look, we're doing so well. Well, I guess you've borrowed umpteen billions of dollars. We don't even have a budget. I can tell you already today, and I bet you I'm very close, we're over $250 billion. Sorry. We're over $250 billion in federal debt loading to generate the economy of today, with the subsidies on industries lowering the cost to all of you. Carbon tax is gone, not the industrial emitter, but the carbon tax is gone. Folks, where is that revenue made up when the government is spending more than ever? The government is hiring more than ever. They've got the provinces doing it so that they can expand the equalization health transfer system, meaning borrowing more money to spread out, while the crown politicians are filling more and more money in their pockets, taking those wads, going to foreign banks, changing the currency, and investing in their future for themselves and their families when the country falls apart. That's what they're doing. That is entirely Canada. Nothing for any of us or our children or the future of this country except for pain and learn to live with less, less, and less. The idea of home ownership will disappear. It will be at the mercy of the wealthy elite and you sharing accommodations with so many others. That's where you're going. And that will be a reality and a truth for all the generation of today. That's my video. Share, share, share. Credible, real, 100% verifiable. And anyone who can't look at the Statistics Canada and can't see those markers and see where even the province of Alberta is going, that's in lockstep with the Liberal Party of Canada. There's no other explanation except for Danielle Smith and Mark Carney are one and the same and working together very intimately, beyond any other premier in the rest of Canada. Beyond a socialism that you cannot find in the United States of America, there is no such a thing. That's how detrimental and terrible this truly is. And it amazes me that Albertans still believe that they're conservative, that Wild Rose and the merger with PC somehow generated something new and beautiful. You're being conned. You're at the mercy of old King Con Cuck Carney, Mark Carney, and his loyal assistant, largest in Canada today, Danielle Smith. There's no other answer when you look at those numbers than what I just gave you in this video. And you can go look at the money borrowed in the fall matches the claimed surplus of today. Look I took out a $5,000 credit card, took all the money out of it, and I'm servicing the debt, and look at the surplus I have in my hand. The debt doesn't go away, and those payments don't go away. And when you burn through that $5,000, like that Visa you took as cash, that debt remains, those service payments remain, and then you feel it. Then you feel it when the $5,000's gone. Albertans will feel it in just a year, and you'll watch all of a sudden, whoa, inflation, where did that come from? Just like COVID and the money borrowed. And you will see the change in the health and service equalization payments. You will see it. You will see it and you will feel it 1 year from today. And then the claim of, oh, it's only 1.79% today. Yeah, sure, as long as you had that extra money to burn through. But once that money's burnt through, they have to borrow more, or they have to find a new way to make the money, and they still have to pay on that $5,000 that's not reduced. You've got a payment for that now. What happens when the $5,000 is gone? Now you got to dig out of your pocket, got to dig out of your pockets to pay for that. You will feel it. More than that, that's the multiplier of the new hired service sector workers, health, education, and service sector workers Alberta's done at an unprecedented rate. You will have to find a way to pay for that. And how are you going to do that? If the resources haven't increased, primary sector markers haven't increased at the rate you grew those things, meaning 1/3, that means you have to come up with money from 2/3 more out of what source? Well, that's the taxpayers, of course. Or you borrow even more and you do more credit cards. You know those people who go out, they got a dozen credit cards, they're in the whole hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they can't even renew their mortgage because they turn around and your mortgage is worth more than you generate. This is the scam of the global evil corrupted system. This is the British system, which is now largely where we're going to be borrowing all our money because we're moving away from USA, where inflation does not follow the borrower, it follows the lender. UK, the inflation follows the borrower. And who's the public borrower? Well, that's me and that's you. That's how Canada works. It's very evil, and it's going to get a lot worse as we move away from the United States. 0.1%, that's all they could generate with all their summer jobs, social programs, and government workforce. What's going to come after the summer? How low is it really going to go then? What's going to happen when Trump's tariffs go in? We've already seen the mass exodus of so many industries, primary industries to the United States. What's going to happen with the next round? They say, oh, it's not going to happen. It's Taco Trump. He's a liar. Socialists will continue to say that. They'll continue to lie to you. All your media in Canada only tells you the story. They get paid by the stories they tell on behalf of the government, federally and provincially. As long as the government's filling their pockets with everything that should be yours, they're going to fill the pockets of those who tell you what you want to hear as they're raping you and your children and the grandchildren after that. We're on a dangerous, dangerous path towards one outcome. And it looks like a merger with China and Canada. That's what it looks like. There's a SAR program. I didn't go into tremendous detail about this. These are self-autonomous republics of China, meaning countries like Canada can remain under the branch of China, let China in and have all that and subsidize their communist centralized system, which the Crown would really like as long as they're not dismembered and thrown to the side. I still wouldn't trust China if I was the Crown, but the Crown would rather do that than ever give up their tremendous wealth generating and control and power over all of you. They'll never give it up. They're born, bred, and educated to believe they're superior to you and that you're just a bunch of dumb Kanakas or savage Indians, and that's their right. They're smarter, better than you. They're better than you. You're here to serve them. Slaves, really. And that's what the system's always been, and that's what the system will always do. 180 degrees opposite than the United States. I wish yesterday I went out for coffee with the boys from work on our break time, We're at this little coffee house called Gray. And in there they got a little library, and you know what I pulled out of there? I pulled out a Webster's dictionary, and then I pulled out the Oxford dictionary. And, you know, a young fellow on a cruise like, well, what about this word? And it's a little crude, right? But even in those basic words, the truth of what USA is in Webster's versus what Canada and we are raised into in Oxford, so many words do not translate the same. Two very, very different styles of English. You can even get into the gender through sex, what Webster's narrates, what Oxford narrates, and you start to get answers of why we're so messed up, why our government has so much control and influence. Because when you're raised in a style of English, even though we think we understand each other, we have basic core meanings that are not the same. We think we're talking the same language, but we're not. And so many words are so different. And just in our financial systems, you see how different it is. You see the corruption of government and just how different we are than the United States. I've learned these things. I see the power of the US, the power of the people. I would much rather be in that system as a working guy, and I'd be happy with that. I never wanted to be a millionaire. You just wanted to raise a family, do the best you could, have something for yourself, just like the American dream. But that's an illusion in Canada. And that hasn't been a reality since the 90s. They've turned on that in the 90s and have been working mad against the Canadian people. And Canadians don't want to see it, but it is truth. So folks, that's my video. Went into a lot here. It's very important. Thanks again, Angie. That was really awesome. I'm going to need that link from you, but I appreciate Americans. I love it when you showcase things. I tried to share yesterday real quick Donald J. Trump's interview with Laura Trump. I was able to watch that as given the whole 1 hour. And when I tried to share it to all of you, can't share that media in Canada. They don't want you to hear. They don't want you to see any of it. They don't want you to hear Trump's perspective employment numbers, which are vastly superior to Canada, and it's real primary sector generators, meaning 90% of those new jobs and incomes go into the system and pay the taxation, whereas when you deal with service sector, I'm not saying we don't need it, but when you're 2 or 3 to 1, only 10% of the tax yield goes back into the system, meaning 90% is lost to the economy, which means you're in a deficit situation. And how people don't understand that you can't have it so extreme, but we do. And then we wonder why we're continuing on massive radical debts and deficits over and over. And it's not just a federal. You can say, well, look, USA's federal's out to lunch. Go look at the state level. You don't see anything remotely close to what the provinces are in Canada. Go look at corporate debt to GDP ratio. USA's nowhere near what Canada is. Look at household debt to GDP ratio. Americans are nowhere near where Canadians are at. When you add all things together, Canada per capita is way more indebted with way lot less than Americans. We even make less. We have almost twice the unemployment number, real unemployment, because we factor in part-time jobs where sometimes people only work in 1 8-hour shift a week. Hardly sustainable or livable, and these people are on the system too, subsidized. So that's my video. This is the results of runaway socialism. It's Canada. It's narrative now. We're going to be teaming up with China. You will find all governments, conservative, liberal, share this narrative. We heard it right out of Pierre Poilievre's mouth. In Alberta, we'll be running in that riding, says, oh no, everything's good. It's going to be great for Canada. We're a united Canada. It's all beautiful. Danielle Smith says, oh yeah, this is all great. We have to fight Donald J. Trump, blah, 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 blah. And again, Lethbridge, you see it. We're even Lethbridge, local at the municipal economic scenario for that community. They even say 90% of everything we make goes to the USA. They're a border town. 90%. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? All of this, Quebec too. Where does 90% of those generic pharmaceuticals that all Canadians enjoy? Canadians say, well, we got all this free healthcare, ours is way better, and we got pharma, we're blah, blah, blah. You don't have the pharma if you can't sell 90% of your goods to the United States. You don't have your local pharma anymore. That's what Canadians don't get. It's like the automotive industry. It's like steel, aluminum, and copper tariffs. All these goods you manufacture. With those things alone in place, you're not manufacturing that stuff anymore. Because USA is not buying it. They're going to buy it from somebody else. Where are you going to go? Well, Jolie, she's working right now with the EU and we're going to get a trade deal. Whoa. I thought we had this economic defense partnership with the EU. Oh yeah, that's us paying them for their defense, investing in them, but we still don't have a trade deal because we're not in the European Union. We've never had a trade deal with the European Union. We don't have market access. We get vetoed on every single industry by each and every one of the members. We won't get membership. Duh. It's always been this way. Always been this way for all of Canada's history and even the years as British North America. Always been that way. In fact, we've seen what happens. In fact, if you go back again, I'm going to say it again, in what was Quebec and what was Ontario's history, they were ready to join the United States. Yeah, as British North American colonies under the British Empire, when they got screwed on trade, completely destroyed. And USA's at a point saying, listen, we've taken care of you for almost 200 years. You ingrate, spoilt, rotten assholes who think you're going to make a deal with all those we've had to have military might to impose our will, to hold our value in supply chains, and we take them on and you've never had to, and you think you're going to get a deal because you're special? Well, you're going to have to learn the hard way. You're going to watch Mark Carney fall on his stupid ass. Jolie, Quebec's going down the toilet. That's going to be the first thing, the pharmaceutical. They're going to break Quebec. There ain't no amount of equalization from Alberta or anywhere else to save them. That is a massive amount of economy. It hurts every province in Canada. You think Alberta's going to be doing great when all of a sudden generic drugs don't exist in Canada anymore? You're buying those American drugs. Well, that was only $6 last month. $600 now, man. Because you got to pay the change a dollar. You got to buy it from the U.S. There's nobody else. Well, what about China? They don't do that, man. Have you ever looked at their health care? Idiot. People don't know. It's pathetic. It's really pathetic. That's my video. Get it out there. Share. Went into a lot of detail, a little more on other things I never finished. I want to do, probably later today, the Epstein. I want to go in with Bongino, Bondi, and Patel. I'm going to go through all of that too. We're going to try that right here at home in my room. We're going to do that because at least I have the Wi-Fi and it should be secured. That one has to be done. I've been letting that play out. A lot of people are backtracking now. I never open my mouth up unless I have the concrete evidence and truth. And we have it all pretty much now. And it's great. It's good to go through. I have a different perspective. I've actually been involved with the DOJ and the FBI system. It's a beautiful thing in the United States. It far outpaces anything in Canada. I'm going to get into that in relation to Epstein and do another video tonight. So we'll see you all there. I think I'll shoot that 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Alberta time. You can factor your provinces in from there. God bless everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you tonight. Bye now.